Welcome to Sino-Warfare with Ralph D. Sawyer.
As previously mentioned, in Swinbean's era, the strongest states were fielding armies as large as 100,000. Although the era's rulers had once again monopolized power, experienced commanders wielded a certain amount of military authority over standing troops and were formally granted extraordinary authority for campaigns, though it was rescinded immediately upon their completion. Moreover, after being appointed, the general was theoretically empowered to direct the army's activities without any further interference from the ruler, just as Sunzi had advocated. Or accordingly, when he entered the army, the commanding general forgot his family and assumed sole authority. However, fearful of revolts, monarchs who frequently had nothing more to depend upon than the arrogance of hereditary position naturally esteemed loyalty over every other virtue. This probably explains its prominence in the military methods. Being responsible for every aspect of the Army's tactics and performance, commanders had to be qualified, reliable men. Quote, "If you want to understand the nature of the Army, the crossbow and arrows are the model. Arrows are the troops. The crossbow the general. The ruler is the one who releases them. If the stock isn't straight when the crossbow is drawn, or if one side is strong and the other weak and the bow unbalanced, the two arms won't be at one when shooting the arrow. And even though the arrow's weight is correct and the length appropriate, it still won't hit the target. If the general's employment of his mind isn't in harmony with the army, even though the formation's lightness and heaviness are correct, and the front and the rear appropriate, they still won't conquer the enemy." The art of war initiated this discussion by identifying several critical virtues and a few flaws, but it becomes a focal concern in the military methods. The chapter known as the General's Righteousness not only specifies 5 positive characteristics that every commander must exhibit, but it also analyzes how their absence consigns an army to defeat. As an example, the entry for righteousness states, "The general must be righteous. If he isn't righteous, he won't be severe. If he isn't severe, he won't be awesome. If he isn't awesome, the troops won't die for him." Thus, righteousness is the head of the army. The other 4 are benevolence, virtuousness, credibility, and strategic wisdom. Credibility underpins obedience. Quote, "The general cannot be without credibility. If he isn't trusted, his orders won't be implemented. If his orders aren't implemented, the army won't be unified. If the army isn't unified, it won't attain fame." Courage's absence in this penultimate list may appear somewhat surprising, but Swinbean includes it in other discussions. More broadly, the commanding general should be qualified for his position by his personal characteristics, intelligence, knowledge, command skills. He should be a man of virtue in every sense, benevolent, courageous, righteous, incorruptible, and caring. Once again, the absence of any of these qualities or the presence of other significant flaws, whether the enemy deliberately exploits them or not, increases the likelihood of defeat. The most complete enumeration appears in the general's defects, where 20 defects are listed. Nearly half of them have been lost, but the ones that remain are enlightening.
Obtuse, little courage, courageous but weak, little credibility, rarely decisive, slow, indolent, oppressive, brutal, selfish, causes confusion.
Swinbean adds, "If his defects are numerous, he will suffer numerous losses." Several crucial deficiencies result from command incompetence, though they may also stem from character flaws. A number are included among the 32 inimical situations listed in the chapter called The General's Losses. They are premised on the idea that in combat, the 2 commanding generals won't both live. The 2 armies won't both survive. The commanding general's fate hinges upon his troops. Now, the first of this echoes the art of war. The general excels if he regards the troops like an infant, loves them like a handsome boy, respects them like a severe teacher, and employs them like clumps of earth. The assertion, he employs them like clumps of earth, reflects the new attitude in the Warring States period, a time when commanders were expected not to flinch at losing 30% of their armies to attain their objectives. The importance of wisdom and diligence are seen in the second. Quote, if, despite adverse circumstances, the battle isn't lost, it's due to the general's wisdom. If he doesn't slight the few, nor suffer incursions from the enemy, if he is as cautious about the end as the beginning, the general is perspicacious. Starting with Sunzi, all the military writers believe that, irrespective of other measures, the so-called twin handles of rewards and punishments provide the basis for control. Sunzi says, now rewards are the means by which to give happiness to the masses and cause the soldiers to forget death. Punishments are the means by which to rectify the chaotic and cause the people to fear their superiors. Now, although he clearly assigned a major role to them in motivating men, Sunzi doesn't discuss rewards and punishments extensively. Nevertheless, he was clearly aware of the need for them to be timely and just. Quote, when the bestowing of rewards does not extend past the day, the imposition of punishments is as quick as turning your face, and they are not affected by the man nor subject to external threats, is due to the commanding general's virtue. Overall, the general must ensure the army is united, disciplined, submissive, and spirited. He must be awesome, but not brutal. Treat the men well without weakening their martial spirit. Elicit a sustained effort without exhausting the army. And be confident so his orders are trusted. And he must be decisive. You'll have to consult the text of the general's losses for the full enumeration, but the following weaknesses and flaws are particularly worth noting.
He constantly wrangles over right and wrong and is argumentative in planning affairs. His commands are not implemented, nor are the troops unified. His subordinates aren't submissive, and the troops can't be employed. The army is thinking about home. The soldiers are deserting. The soldiers are disordered. He engages in battle, but is unprepared. The sun is setting, the road far, and the troops dispirited. He frequently changes his commands, and the troops are furtive. He has numerous doubts, so the troops are doubtful. Their minds are divided at the time appointed for battle.
Circumstantial factors that debilitate their bodies and depress their spirit can also predispose an army to defeat. For example, quote, if the army's been frightened several times, the general can be defeated. If their chi, their spirit, has been injured from being long exposed on campaign, the general can be defeated. Somewhat unexpectedly, even though demoralized armies make easy targets and many methods should be employed to achieve this situation, Sunzi warned that generals, quote, who rely upon the enemy becoming dispirited can be defeated. Centuries earlier, Sunzi had already pointed out the important role that chi, combat spirit or morale, plays in the army. Commanders must therefore institute measures that will nurture and augment it at the proper moment. At the same time, they have to avoid, or at least minimize, compelling the troops to undertake activities that will deplete it, such as engaging vastly superior enemies. The Military Methods contains a remarkable chapter titled Expanding Chi that describes the concrete stages required to psychologically prepare the army for battle. A number of other early texts discuss Chi, and it's possible to construct a psychology of martial Chi from them, as I did in my article, Martial Chi in China, and we'll discuss further at another time. But Sunzi's multi-stage analysis is unique.
When you form the army and assemble the troops, concentrate upon stimulating their chi. When you decamp and reassemble the army, concentrate upon ordering the soldiers and sharpening their chi. When you approach the border and draw near the enemy, concentrate upon honing their chi. When the day for battle has been set, concentrate upon making their chi decisive. When the day for battle is at hand, concentrate upon expanding their chi.
Although the chapter is badly damaged, it's possible to discern the measures that must be employed to realize each stage. Even somewhat abridged, they merit examining.
When the commanding general assembles the troops, he issues a mission statement in order to overawe the warriors of the three armies and stimulate their chi. When the commanding general reassembles the troops, he issues his orders to sharpen their chi. The short coat and coarse clothes encourage the warriors' determination and are the means to hone their chi. When they are about to engage in combat, sever all communications to cut off any hope for life and make the troops' chi decisive.
Swinbean's analysis equally describes the inimical consequences of failing to achieve the required stages.
If their chi isn't sharp, they will be plodding and won't reach their objective. On campaign, if their chi isn't honed, the soldiers will be frightened and will mass together. When their chi isn't decisive, they will be slack, won't be focused, and will easily disperse. If their chi isn't expanded, they will be lazy, and it will be difficult to employ them. If they aren't exposed to hardship, they won't know to constrain themselves, and affairs will be overturned.
Rewards and material measures were also employed to stimulate them. Cowardice and defeat were published severely and severally, all the members of the squad being mutually responsible for each other in Swinbean's conception, in common with the other classical military writers. Men were thus coerced into fighting fervently by what has probably been the prime motivation over the millennia, their relationship with their fellow soldiers. Separately, Swinbean states, make the rewards and emoluments clear, and the troops will advance without hesitation. If you invariably investigate and implement them, their officers will die. If you kill some officers, then the officers will certainly submit to your awesomeness. Swinbean's deliberate utilization of officers as conspicuous examples is unique, but of course founded on the idea that visibly inflicting punishment upon the higher ranks will terrify the ordinary soldiers into obedience. The military writings therefore stress the great and the noble should never be spared, and they sometimes encourage especially draconian measures. Swinbean also suggested several methods for eliciting the necessary courageous behavior.
If you treat the officers deferentially, they will die for you. If you encourage them with fundamental pleasures, they will die for their native places. If you importune them with family relationships, they will die for the ancestral graves. If you honor them with feasts, they will die for the honor of food and drink. If you have them dwell in tranquility, they will die in the urgency of defense.
Although he never advocated using fatal terrain to elicit a maximum effort, Swinbean's approach to battle often relied on elite units that can only have been motivated through the systematic imposition of all of these measures.
As always, thank you for watching.